Welcome to Voluble Minds, reflections on and abbreviated readings of famous philosophical dialogues. I'm Colin Wulff, Assistant Director of Religious Education at the Fourth Universalist Society in New York City. If you would like to skip the introductory segment on today's philosopher and dialogue and go straight to the reading, the timestamp posted in the video description will help you to do that. Thank you for joining us. Desiderius Erasmus of Rotterdam, who lived 1466 to 1536, was a Dutch Christian humanist who usually wrote in Latin. This is not necessarily the more developed modern humanism of the often secular liberal quality with which we might associate the term today. For instance, as Erasmus' contemporary colleague and fellow Renaissance humanist Sir Thomas More demonstrated in his Utopia, humanism in the Tudor age was perfectly compatible with wishing death and banishment on atheists. Though a believer in God, Erasmus did hold to the power of reason as the means of understanding the Creator. It was this view, somewhat inherited from Augustine, which empiricists David Hume, George Berkeley, and John Locke, two of whom are represented in our series, would call into question 2 centuries later. Various efforts at knowing God through human means beyond faith, and the tension between rationalism and empiricism anticipate what today is sometimes expressed in the evidentialist approach to religious study. It's a mixed bag to both believers and non, because it both elevates the importance of human reason and or observation, but may also hold some religious ideas to a standard perhaps not appropriate to them, or more bluntly, to which they can't hope to live up. Erasmus' most famous work, though not the one we'll be reading, is probably In Praise of Folly, inspired by the satirist Lucian, whose comic dialogues in the 2nd century were an early parody of the Socratic dialogue as immortalized by Plato. In Praise of Folly is a satirical disquisition from the perspective of Folly, personified as an eloquent lady, just as Boethius personified Lady Philosophy. Folly manifest has a double-edged function, as satire will, but ultimately targets the church as a poor representative of the divine, with its obsessions on self-mortification and arbitrary ritual proofs of faith. Erasmus developed this distaste for the church early on when, under pressure from his family, he committed himself to a monastic life until he was almost 30, when he left this lifestyle for one of travel and education. If the folly praised is those superstitious and arbitrary parochialisms and formulae of institutionalized religion, they must still bear the name of folly. But if instead folly is the simple, unornamented, and thus in Erasmus' view, true and honest approach to religion, which requires only love for one's fellow beings, though it be called folly, it be praiseworthy. Erasmus asks, does anyone appear a candidate for any ecclesiastical dignity? Why, an ass or a plough jobber shall sooner gain it than a wise man. So though reading folly, one can experience some early confusion about the doublespeak usage of that word folly, in which the very object of Erasmus' defense is so jocularly treated, it becomes clear that Erasmus' sympathies do lie with this unadulterated, non-dissembling version of religion, free from the vexations of overthinking and abstraction. And thus, even in a state of folly, we can use reason on the path to God, for the studiously wise might actually experience a total breakdown of reason by attempting to contend with lofty divine ideas beyond the mortal scope. But aren't the love of our friends' faults, eagerness to live life fully despite physical risk, our love of poetry, rhetoric, satisfaction with a humble trade, indeed love itself and most human pleasures, forms of folly, at least if we accept a certain definition of the word? Erasmus rejects and scoffs at the intricate rituals of the educated clerics as actually serving to impede a good and godly life. What then is folly, really? If it is all the natural human endowments, it's an admirable quality, and one much more accessibly and democratically supplied to humankind than the so-called wisdom of the church and theologians, who have even made a muddle of the most simple apostolic recommendations like charity. Erasmus rails against notional divines, who, while they trifle away their misspent hours in trash and babble, they think that they support the Catholic Church, with the props and pillars of propositions and syllogisms, no less effectually than Atlas is feigned by the poets to sustain on his shoulders the burden of a tottering world. First written in Latin in 1509, this aspect of Erasmus' humanism, if not his emphasis on reason, clearly anticipates the Protestant populism of faith alone, not to be articulated in Martin Luther's 95 Theses for another 8 years. In spite of some very qualified overlap in their opinions, Erasmus is much less widely remembered or understood than that German monk Luther who stapled his revolution to the door of Wittenberg's castle church in 1517. This is partly because Erasmus ultimately never broke in favor of the Reformation, feeling repulsed by the upheaval its exponents seemed to bring about, an old story. His distaste for the Catholic Church, combined with his distrust for the unruly leaders and expressions of Protestantism, placed him in something of a historical limbo. Was he a courageous freethinker, bearing the isolation of his convictions, a complacent centrist survivor, or a compulsive contrarian? Sir Thomas More, who for his refusal to endorse Henry VIII's marriage annulment died almost exactly a year before Erasmus did, has been subjected to many of the same questions and re-evaluations, appearing in almost irreconcilable contrast in works like Robert Bolt's play A Man for All Seasons and Hilary Mantel's novel Wolf Hall. The great ecologist and rightly regarded synthesizer of many fields and ideas, Evelyn Hutchinson, had a clear opinion on Erasmus' legacy. Hutchinson bemoaned the humanist's relative obscurity in a fascinating essay, For Now the Morning Draweth Near, from his essay collection The Itinerant Ivory Tower, published in 1953. Hutchinson wrote, Erasmus is generally regarded as having failed because of his supposedly superficial view of human nature, which he considered to be reasonable, and in consequence no one took his views to heart on a sufficiently large scale to demonstrate their correctness. Machiavelli is generally regarded as having succeeded, because many powerful men attempted to put his percepts into practice to the great detriment of their weaker fellows. Hutchinson concludes, in an inversion worthy of In Praise of Folly itself, Erasmus was the reasonable man, the scholar, the unifier, the citizen of a dignified world of learning, and his failure has, in practice, been attributed to these virtues. As we explore our dialogic selection, you can decide if this is a fair appraisal of Erasmus. Our dialogic selection for Erasmus is lesser known than the more monologic In Praise of Folly. His Colloquies, first published in 1518, began as a series of Latin exercises for Erasmus students, but the collection became expansive, informative, and entertaining in its own right. There's plenty of his mordant attitude towards the church to be found in them, as well as intellectual play on an extensive range of topics, sometimes not recognizably philosophic, but there is usually something to unpack about culture or human behavior and powerful institutions. Because there are roughly 50 dialogues in the last published edition, we will be doing something a bit different today. We will be focusing on Volume 1 of his Colloquies, and I and my guest reader will be doing a format I call Colloquial Roulette with Erasmus, trying within our usual episode length to sample as broad a range of these dialogues as possible, while still giving a sense of each one's focus. Etiquette, war, religion, sports. See if you can keep up. It is amusing that here, more than in any of the Greek dialogues of our Plato unit, we approach stickamythia, or the literary device in which two characters alternate lines of verse, usually at a brisk pace, in a push and pull of rhythmic antithesis and complement. In the ones we cover, Erasmus makes fun of the soldier's life, domestic quarrels, formality, and pastimes, while also making what appears to be a sincere go at resolving some of the arguments regarding the divine immanence and the relation between the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, a conversation theoretically resolved with the establishment of the Nicene Creed in 325 AD, the reverberations of which, however, survive in extant schisms in Christian tradition. We will hear more details on that when we get to Thomas Hobbes. I'm joined today in this colloquial roulette by the brave and wonderful Josh Cahn, a close friend, comedian, and actor. You might have seen him recently in the pilot episode of HBO's The Plot Against America, based on the Philip Roth novel of the same name. His company, Actors Helping Actors, produces custom acting reels and editing services, including voiceover demos and websites. He regularly teaches workshops on how the working actor can effectively produce these materials, and is on the voiceover teaching staff at The Growing Studio in New York City. He will be reading no less than 10 roles for us today as we hop from dialogic fragment to dialogic fragment. Please enjoy this sampling of 10 short and diverse dialogues from Erasmus' Colloquies.
Oh, master, God bless ye.
Oh, good sir, I wish you the same.
God bless you, most accomplished and most famous sir. God bless you again and again, thou glory of learning. God save you heartily, my very good friend.
God save you, my singular patron. God save you, most approved sir. God save you, the only ornament of this age. God bless you, the delight of Germany.
God bless you altogether. God bless you all alike.
God bless you, my brave boy.
God save you, merry companion. God save you, destroyer of wine.
God bless you, glutton and unmerciful devourer of cakes.
God bless you heartily, president of all virtue.
God bless you in like manner, pattern of universal honesty.
God save you again and again.
God save you forever and ever.
God save you more than 1,000 times.
In truth, I had rather be well once and for all.
God bless you as much as you can desire.
And as much as you can deserve.
I wish you well.
Are you in good health?
I wish I were. Not altogether so well as I would be. Indeed, I am so. Pretty well. I am as well as I can be, since I can't be so well as I would be. As I used to be. So as it pleases God. Truly, not very well. Never worse in all of my life. As I am wont to be. How do you do?
Why, truly, not well. Ill, very ill, in an unhappy, unprosperous, unfavorable, bad, adverse, unlucky, feeble, dubious, indifferent state of health. Not at all as I would. A tolerable state, yet such as I would not wish even to my enemies. What distemper are you troubled with?
I can't tell, and in that my condition is the more dangerous.
That's true, for when the disease is known, it is half cured. Have you had the advice of any doctor?
I, of a great many.
What did they say to your case? Is it a dropsy?
They say it is not.
Is it a dysentery?
I think not.
Is it a fever?
I believe it is a kind of fever, but a new one, as ever and anon new ones spring up that were unknown before.
There were more old ones than enough before.
Thus it pleases nature to deal with us, which is a little too severe.
How often does the fit come?
How often do you say? Every day? Nay, every hour, indeed.
Oh, wonderful. It is a sad affliction.
Oh, Cornelius, well met heartily. You have been lost this 100 years.
What, my old companion Arnoldus, the man I long to see most of any man in the world, God save you.
We all gave thee over for lost, but prithee, where hast been rambling all this while?
In t'other world.
Oh, I truly a body would think so by thy slovenly dress and lean carcass.
Well, but I am just come from Jerusalem, not from the Stygian shades.
What did you see then? I hope you are come back more holy than you went.
No, indeed, rather 10 times worse.
Well, but then you are richer.
Nay, rather poorer than Job.
But don't you repent you have taken so long a journey to so little purpose?
No, nor I am not ashamed in either. I have so many companions of my folly to keep me in countenance, and as for repentance, it's too late now.
What? Do you get no good then by so dangerous a voyage?
Yes, a great deal.
What is it?
Why, I shall live more pleasantly for it for time to come.
What, because you have the pleasure of telling old stories when the danger is over?
That is something indeed, but that is not all.
Is there any other advantage in it besides that?
Yes, there is.
What is it? Pray tell me.
Why, I can divert myself and company as oft as I have a mind to it, in romancing upon my adventures over a pot of ale or a good dinner.
Why, truly, that is something, as you say.
But in the meantime, in what corner of the earth have you hid yourself all this while?
In Rome.
But is it possible that in so public a place nobody should know you were alive?
Good men are nowhere in the world so much incognito as there, so that in the brightest day you shall scarce see one in a thronged market.
Well, but then you're come home laden with benefices.
Indeed, I hunted after them diligently, but I had no success, for the way of fishing there is, according to a proverb, with a golden hook.
That is a foolish way of fishing.
No matter of that, some folks find it a very good way.
Are they not the greatest fools in nature that change gold for lead?
But don't you know that there are veins of gold in holy lead?
But they make a better voyage of it that return laden with budgets full of benefices. All the same, why had you rather a benefice than a wife?
Because I love to live at ease. I love to live a pleasant life. I love a continual pleasure. He that marries a wife is happy for a month, but he that gets a fat benefice lives merrily all of his life.
But solitude is so melancholy a life that Adam, in paradise, could not have lived happily unless God had given him an Eve.
He'll never need to want an Eve that has gotten a good benefice.
But that pleasure can't really be called pleasure that carries an ill name and bad conscience with it.
You say true, and therefore I design to divert the tediousness of solitude by a conversation with books.
They are the pleasantest companions in the world.
How comes it about that you went away a Mercury and came back a Vulcan?
What do you talk to me of your Mercuries and your Vulcans for?
Because you seemed to be ready to fly when you went away, but you've come home limping.
I'm come back like a soldier, then.
You were a soldier that would outrun a stag if an enemy were at your heels.
The hope of booty made me valiant.
Well, have you brought home a good deal of plunder then?
Empty pockets.
Then you were the lighter for traveling.
But I was heavy laden with sin.
That's heavy luggage indeed, if the prophet says right who calls sin lead.
I have seen and had a hand in more villainies this campaign than in the whole course of my life before.
How do you like a soldier's life?
There is no course of life in the world more wicked or more wretched.
But tell me, how went the battle? Who got the better on it?
There was such a hallooing, hurly-burly noise of guns, trumpets, and drums, neighing of horses, and shouting of men, that I was so far from knowing what others were doing that I scarcely knew where I was myself.
Don't you know how you came to be lame neither?
Scarcely, upon mine honor. But I suppose my knee was hurt by a stone or a horse heel or so.
Well, but I can tell you.
You tell me? Why, has anybody told you?
No, but I guess.
Tell me then.
When you were running away in fright, you fell down and hit it against a stone.
Let me die if you hadn't hit the nail on the head.
Go get you home and tell your wife of your exploits.
What is that which is called religion?
It is the pure worship of God and observation of his commandments.
What are they?
It is too long to relate all, but I'll tell you in short, it consists in 4 things.
What are they?
In the first place, that we have a true and pious apprehension of God himself and the Holy Scriptures, and that we not only stand in awe of him as a Lord, but that we love him with all our hearts as a most beneficent Father. 2, that we take the greatest care to keep ourselves blameless, that is, that we injure no one. 3, that we exercise charity, i.e., to deserve well of all persons, as much as in us lies. 4, that we practice patience, i.e., to bear patiently injuries that are offered us, when we can't prevent them, not revenging them, nor requiting evil for evil.
You hold forth finely, but do you practice what you teach?
I endeavor it manfully. God forbid, do you make a Circe of me?
You are more barbarous than Circe herself. I had rather be a hog or a bear than as I now am, half dead.
By what sort of enchantments do I kill men?
By the witchcraft of your eyes.
Would you have me take my noxious eyes off of you then?
No, by no means. Rather look more upon me.
If my eyes are so infectious, how comes it about they don't throw others I look upon into consumption too? I therefore rather believe the infection is in your eyes than mine.
Is it not enough for you to kill poor Pamphilus, but you must insult him too?
Oh, pretty dead creature. But when must I come to your funeral?
Sooner than you think, if you don't relieve me.
Can I perform such a wonderful cure?
You can raise a dead man to life again with the greatest ease imaginable.
Aye, if I had the grand elixir.
You have no need of any medicine. Do but love me again. And what's easier than that? From what fountain does this flood of lies flow?
From whence do spiders' webs proceed?
Then it is not the product of art, but of nature.
The seeds indeed proceed from nature, but art and use have enlarged the faculty.
Why, are you not ashamed of it?
No more than a cuckoo is of her singing.
But you can alter your note upon every occasion. The tongue of man was given him to speak the truth.
Aye, to speak those things that tend to his profit. The truth is not to be spoken at all times.
It is sometimes for a man's advantage to have pilfering hands, and the old proverb is a witness that that is a vice that is cousin german to yours, of lying.
Both these vices are supported by good authorities. One has Ulysses, so much commended by Homer, and the other has Mercury, who was a god, for its example, if we believe the poets.
Why then do people in common curse liars and hang thieves?
Not because they lie or steal, but because they do it bunglingly or unnaturally, not rightly understanding the art.
Is there any author that teaches the art of lying?
Your rhetoricians have instructed in the best part of the art. Dost thou believe in God, the Father Almighty, who made the heaven and earth?
Yes, and whatever is contained in the heaven and earth, and the angels also, which are spirits.
When thou sayest God, what dost thou understand by it?
I understand a certain eternal mind, which neither had beginning nor shall have any end, than which nothing can be greater, wiser, or better.
Thou believest indeed like a good Christian.
Who by his omnipotent beck made all things visible or invisible, who by his wonderful wisdom orders and governs all things, who by his goodness feeds and maintains all things, and freely restored mankind when fallen.
These are indeed 3 especial attributes in God, but what benefit dost thou receive by knowledge of them?
When I conceive him to be omnipotent, I submit myself wholly to him, in comparison of whose majesty the excellency of men and angels is nothing.
Dost thou think that it is sufficient for thee to believe him to be so?
By no means. But with a sincere affection, I put my whole trust and confidence in him alone, detesting Satan and all idolatry and magic arts. I worship him alone, preferring nothing before him, nor equaling nothing with him, neither angel, nor my parents, nor children, nor wife, nor prince, nor riches, nor honors, nor pleasures, being ready to lay down my life if he call for it, being assured that he can't possibly perish who commits himself wholly to him.
What then does thou worship nothing, fear nothing, love nothing but God alone?
If I reverence anything, fear anything, or love anything, it is for his sake I love it, fear it, and reverence it, referring all things to his glory, always giving thanks to him for whatsoever happens, whether prosperous or adverse, life or death.
In truth, your confession is very sound so far. What do you think concerning the second person?
Examine me.
Dost thou believe Jesus was God and man?
Yes?
Could it be that the same should be both a mortal God and mortal man?
That was an easy thing for him to do, who can do what he will. And by reason of his divine nature, which is common to him with the Father, whatsoever greatness, wisdom, and goodness I attribute to the Father, I attribute the same to the Son. And whatsoever I owe to the Father, I owe also to the Son. But only that it hath seemed good to the Father to bestow all things on us through him.
Then dost thou put thy confidence in Jesus?
Why not?
But the prophet calls him accursed who puts his trust in man.
But to this man alone hath all the power in heaven and earth been given, that at his name every knee should bow, both of things in heaven, things in earth, and things under the earth. Although I would not put my chief confidence and hope in him unless he were God.
Why do you call him son?
Lest any should imagine him to be a creature.
Why an only son?
To distinguish the natural son from the sons by adoption, the honor of which surname he imputes to us also, that we may look for no other besides this son.
Why would he have him to be made man who was God?
That being man, he might reconcile men to God.
Dost thou believe he was conceived without the help of man by the operation of the Holy Ghost and born to the undented Virgin Mary, taking a mortal body of her substance?
Yes.
Why would he be so born?
Because it so became God to be born. Because it became him to be born in this manner, who was to cleanse away the filthiness of our conception and birth. God would have him to be born the Son of Man, that we, being regenerated into him, might be made the sons of God.
Dost thou believe that he lived here upon earth, did miracles, taught those things that are recorded to us in the gospel?
Aye, more certainly than I believe you to be a man. I don't inquire what you take most delight in, but what is it that ought to be most delighted in?
I would not have my monks mind books much.
But my husband approves very well of it. But why would you not have your monks bookish?
Because I find they are not so obedient. They answer again out of the decrees and decretals of Peter and Paul.
Why then do you command them to the contrary to what Peter and Paul did?
I can't tell what they teach, but I can't endure a monk that answers again, nor would I have any of my monks wiser than I am myself.
You might prevent that well enough if you did but lay yourself out to get as much wisdom as you can.
I haven't leisure.
Why so?
Because I haven't time.
What, not at leisure to be wise?
No.
Pray what hinders you?
Long prayers, the affairs of my household, hunting, looking after my horses, attending at court.
Well, and do you think these things are better than wisdom?
Custom has made it so.